Hey everyone, welcome back. Since the spring hasn't been as sunny and springy as everybody's been hoping it would be, it was a perfect opportunity to just sit inside and practice my watercolor because I've been wanting to do that for a while and to improve. And I really respect people who are good at watercolor because I come from a more acrylic and oil background, and I feel that layering really helps a lot. And the unpredictability and the translucency of watercolor paints to me is a challenge. So I really want to practice more because I feel that it's a matter of really getting a feeling for it, a feeling for how wet your paper is, when to do wet and wet, when to do dry on wet, wet on dry, sorry, and those kinds of things. And so I'm doing a bunch of animals today, as you can see, because I love animals and I would love to do more for wildlife conservation in my life. I am using some watercolor pencils to give the whole thing a bit more outline. I used to think that outlines weren't the most professional choice because, you know, coloring books have outlines, but it's actually, I found out, a stylistic choice for me. I don't necessarily have to rely on contrast and things like that to make my subjects pop. But I just like the look of those borders. I don't know what it is. Obviously, it reminds me of, I don't know, childhood illustrations, illustrations from books maybe that I had in my childhood or whatever reason. But that's okay. I like it, and so I will be using mixed media, I think, a lot in the future. But depending on the look I want to achieve, I think watercolor can really give you that ethereal, light and dreamy quality. And that's why I'm practicing. My second painting is one of a deer. At this point, I'm using gouache to put on the white dots. You can always use masking fluid or even markers, like masking markers that exist today. But I didn't have that on hand, so I just used gouache. And here I'm experimenting with some salt effects, which is a stylistic choice, but I think it's fun. That's really the fun part about watercolor, that you don't really build it up, especially when you do backgrounds. You don't necessarily build it up consciously, but you let the water do whatever it wants to do, and it gives her some really interesting effects. I'm moving on to a moth, because I always feel that moths are very interesting and beautiful creatures, but a bit underrated and underappreciated compared to butterflies. Maybe because their colors are more subdued, or they're creatures of the night. But I always found them very mysterious, and they're actually pretty cute with their little furry bodies, and yeah, even their ornaments. But don't try to look this one up, because this particular moth is my invention. I don't think there is one that looks exactly that way. But yeah, well, that's an actually really creative thing to do. Just draw and paint moths all day and invent patterns. I enjoyed it, and I'm going in with more watercolor pencils here, and I like using them because I don't have to decide right away whether I want to dilute the pencil strokes or not. I can just take a look at it when I'm done and then decide to add water or not, and it works both ways. I'm enhancing the dark shades here because, like I said, I like outlines and I like contrast, and I thought it popped out more like that. It's a bit out of perspective, I think, in this video, but it was a nice exercise. The next animal I'm doing is a kingfisher, and like I said before, I didn't have any masking fluid. So I'm actually using washi tape and masking tape, which is a bit of a pain in the neck, especially with very detailed drawings, but it wasn't that much work and it saved me a lot of money. But my masking fluid is on its way. I ordered some, but this was also okay. I used a couple of water blooms, I think they call them, on the background here, which also is a very stylistic choice. Some people love them, some people hate them, but since kingfishers are called Eisvögel, or a kingfisher is called Eisvogel in German, which means literally means ice bird, I thought that this crystal shape was suitable, at least in my mind. And that's how my brain worked at that time. And now I'm just playing around with sprinkles. And since they were a bit too dark, I'm taking off some of the intensity with my tissue paper. And that way I have an interesting background. The only challenge will be to make the bird even more interesting and to not have the background distract too much. But I didn't think that would be a problem because I was going to use quite dark and intense colors anyway. So I just allowed myself to experiment. But I found out that lately I've been soaking up so much information and watching tutorials and learning techniques and things like that. But sometimes binge watching will not get you any further. You might be inspired, but in the end you have to try it yourself. And when you see the results, it's like creativity comes from necessity at times, and then you see a problem in your painting and you try to figure out how to fix it. And you come up with things that you didn't think you'd come up with. So don't be afraid, just try. I mean, what have you got to lose? You will have fun and you will improve. I'm using salt on the wings and the chest as well. The effect wasn't as pronounced as I had wanted to because I had put another lighter layer underneath. So I learned from that. Next time I will just do one layer and let the salt do the entire work. And that's how experimentation really helps your skill and just broadens your horizon. My next painting is one of a fox, and in this case I did not use traditional watercolor, but I used my Mia Himi gouache. And it took me some experimentation as well because I wasn't quite sure how much water I needed to water down the gouache to be able to use it as watercolor paint. And honestly, I realized that it's a student grade gouache, so it's probably not going to do as it actually did not do as well as regular watercolor, or maybe better brands or more professional brands of watercolor, as you can see in the background. But that's okay, I learned, and in this case I am kind of doing the reverse of an ink and wash because I really like the look of ink and wash pictures. But since I wanted to practice my watercolor more and not rely too much on the outlines, I did the outlines later on and tried to incorporate them into my existing painting. And actually, I still need to practice a little more, especially the blending aspect, which will help me with portraits, hopefully, in the future. But for a beginner, I think it still turned out nice, and I will be doing this again. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in my next episode. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy, and have a nice week, everyone. Thank you for watching. Bye.